My name's Craig Viveros and I'm directing And Then There Were None. I feel great to hear the script come to life for the first time and hear it in chronological order and kind of get a sense of how it all fits together. And we've got a great cast here today. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they bring to it. I was sent the scripts by Abby Back, the producer, and as soon as I read them I just thought, wow, this is something completely different, different take on Christie, and something that I wanted to be part of straight away. It's a very dark tale, and not what you normally expect from the Christie, so I was kind of very intrigued to explore the dark heart of Christie and what made her contemporary at the time. This is also a contemporary piece, and I thought that we can transpose what she'd done in 1939 and bring it into a modern age.
Getting to a read-through is always an achievement. A lot of preparation has gone, and this is the culmination of all the work so many people have done, particularly for And Then There Were None, which was an iconic Agatha Christie. It's a great moment.
It's always quite a nerve-wracking time because it's the first time that you've sort of read it in front of everyone, but it's also, for me, a really important time because it's the one time that the whole cast comes together and you hear the whole thing chronologically before you start. So obviously everything's been broken up and you're filming it in different, everything's filmed at different times, so as an actor it's important to sort of know the journey of everything and the sort of the chronology of events, so yeah.
It is an opportunity for everybody to get to know each other, especially the people that they perhaps might not meet during the course of the shoot.
I'm trying not to analyse it because it's the most overwhelming room I've ever been in, and I found out about this role 4 days ago, and it's a huge role, and I'm terrified and excited.
Well, I'd like to tell you that it's very calm and, all together, but it's a little nerve-wracking for most people. But we've got a nice cup of tea and a great script to work on, so it should be fine.
I think it's always quite exciting. I mean, it's a new project. The great thing about our job is that you get to do loads of new projects with loads of new people, and every time it's a fresh experience. So it's always quite exciting, I think.
I'm always concerned about the sheer quantity of people, and whether I'm any good.
On behalf of Agatha Christie and on the screen, I'd like to welcome everyone here today to the And Then There Were None read-through. For those of you who don't know, And Then There Were None has sold over 100 million copies worldwide and is the best-selling crime novel of all time. And this is the first time that it's been made for television, so there's absolutely no pressure on any of us to make this Christmas event piece into the modern-day classic.
Well, as you can imagine from my great age, I have attended a number of these events, but I can't remember one as potentially iconic as this one. I walked in the door here about 10 past 10, and I think 12 people have already told me that And Then There Were None was their favourite Agatha Christie. And if there are 10 people inside this room, there must be thousands, indeed tens of thousands of people outside this room for whom this will be an iconic moment this Christmas.
I think there are too many great challenges to face, but they're good challenges to have, and ones to embrace. We're lucky enough that we do what we love, and now we've got another 8 weeks of doing more of what we love. So
And Then There Were None's never been done for television before. And when we set out, it must be about 4 or 5 years ago now, to work with the BBC to look at how we might do it for the first time, our dream was to actually recreate And Then There Were None as it was written in the book in 1939. It's a very significant time because obviously the world's on the brink of war. The clouds that are gathering over the water in the book are obviously symbolic of what's happening politically in the world at that time. And we did talk about possibly doing And Then There Were None as a contemporary piece or in a different way, but in the end we decided to try and do something that was very, very pure. But we wanted to give it the tone which the book actually has. I mean, Then There Were None, written in its time, was a deeply scary book. It was terrifying. 10 people are lured to an island, there's no one else there, and somebody is killing them off one by one.
In some senses, And Then There Were None is almost the most unique Agatha Christie. I mean, for one or two obvious reasons, it doesn't have Poirot in it, it doesn't have Miss Marple in it. The whole story is probably much darker than most of my grandmother's stories. People often ask me sort of how these books got written, and Then There Were None was one of the stories, as she called them, that I think my grandmother was most proud of. And it wasn't, I think, one of those stories that just tripped off the pen, because it is quite unique and very complicated to make it work so that it's even remotely credible. And I think it was a particularly difficult technical detective story to write. And I think she was very proud that she actually managed to achieve it.
This is the first time that it's ever been made for television, so that's really exciting for us as well, doing something a bit different, because it is, I do believe, the most popular of the Agatha Christie novels. So really we've just got to make sure that we do it justice.
We wanted to find a writer who we knew could take period and give it a contemporary tone, make it feel relevant to people watching it today. And we felt there was no one better for that than Sarah Phelps, who's done extraordinary work with things like Great Expectations and Oliver.
She didn't write a treatment for what she was going to do. She just got on and wrote the scripts. And before Christmas last year, that's December 2014, we thought, well, we might get one script, but 3 scripts came through all at once for us to read across Christmas.
Somebody, I don't think it was me actually, said to her rather nervously, "Sarah, you're not going to deviate from the story very much, are you?" And she looked at them very severely. In fact, I thought she was going to hit them, actually. And she said, what I was paid to do, she said, was an adaptation, and that's what it will be.
I was sent a sort of book of, it was like a graphic novel of And Then There Were None. And a production company I worked with before, Mammoth, they said, "Are you interested in this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know Agatha Christie at all. I've never actually read an Agatha Christie." So I read the book, and it really shocked me. Here are these 10 people on an island at the end of the world in the summer of 1939. We are a couple of weeks away from the Second World War. All of these people, they're all products of the First World War, if you like. And here they are with all the things that they've done, and the end of their world is arriving. No one's going to come and save them. No idiosyncratic little Belgian detective. No sharp-eyed English spinster. No one is going to come and save the day. They are alone with judgment for the things that they've done. And it absolutely felt like a book about its time, a book about being at this point in the 20th century. And I was incredibly sort of shocked by its brutality, and felt that when I came to adapt it, it would absolutely be set in that place. It would absolutely be an island so that you can't see the mainland. You'd be absolutely alone, because I think that's what she's written a book about it, that you're alone with the things you've done, and judgment is coming, and it's going to be brutal. There are huge challenges to doing adaptation. Say sometimes you can have books which are about 500 pages long. You've got to fit it into 3 hours. So you've got to do quite radical things to the text in order to create the drama. But when it came to And Then There Were None, one of the biggest challenges, and I've got to be really honest with you, was in the book where people say, "Oh my God, it could have been that person. It could have been that person who did the murders." Now, in the book, that's okay, because you can't see where everybody is. You take it for granted. The author says they're not here. You don't have to think about where they are. In an adaptation, when you're going to visually see it, and they're going to be in this sort of multi-dimensional space, you've got to show where they are. And I used to sit there going, God almighty, how am I going to make it look as though any one of them could have done this particular murder on the island? And sometimes that would lead me to bang my head against the wall a little bit. I feel very strongly that when I take on a responsibility like this, that I want to own it and I want to set the tone and I want to make it very, very clear what this is, what story I'm telling, how it's going to be different, how it's going to feel fresh and exciting like it's never happened before. And once you've done that, hopefully you have set the tone. And there's times where, you know, you can feel it diffusing, more people come on, but the scripts have got to tell people what this is, because then they can go and, you know, invent and have the ideas for their production design, costume design, for makeup, for their cinematography, for the director. But the scripts start everything. It all starts with the word on the page.
We're shooting at Rootham Hall today because we were looking for a space that has the possibility to create a 1930s kitchen, and actually this space is pretty much a blank palette. We've had to bring in the Aga because they would have been cooking on the state-of-the-art new cooking appliances. I mean, pretty much everything you see on that set has been brought in by us. There's nothing there to start off with, but what we've had to look for in all our locations is the right choreography. It's very, very important within the script that we could find a kitchen with a corridor off it and a place that we could build this gramophone room.
Action!
In the script we travel from a very bright sort of normal world to sort of a darker world where the power goes, and we have candles and lanterns and all sorts of light replacements. So there's lots of dark, scary moments which we can create with the light. But at the beginning of the show, I think the show is very beautiful, very period, and all those, you know, normal values that you see in a period drama.
The inclination of a lot of people is to say, oh, it's 1930s, let's do Art Deco. Now, when I came to talk about the project, the first thing I thought is, I don't want to do Art Deco. I know that I think she probably wrote the novel with Burr Island in mind, which is an island in Devon, and there's an Art Deco hotel on it, which, when she wrote it, it was an extremely exciting, modern hotel, but I kind of feel that the Art Deco's been done and done to death. We've had it on Poirot, we've had it on a lot of the Agatha Christies, and I went in and said, I want to turn this expectation upside down and bring something else in. And actually, interestingly, the 30s was a very innovative time for design. There were a lot of designers, Elise de Wolfe, Ciri Morn, Oliver Messel. There were a lot of very interesting designers around at the time, and what they were doing, because obviously it was the time of the Great Depression, they weren't using expensive materials to do up houses. They were sort of making do and adapting. So Ciri Morn would paint up the old dark furniture. She'd get rope and stick it onto the walls and make sort of mouldings. It was a really exciting, innovative time, and so obviously I came in and said, this is what I'd like to do, use these ideas that these designers had. Ciri Morn especially, because she would do things like design chairs with horses' hooves or lions' claws, and I thought this was very relevant to the piece, in that everything that you look at in the house looks amazing, but there's a dark undertone to the whole thing.
So Today you're in the servants' quarter, a bit like Gosford Park kind of area, so it's a little bit darker, so we're in the sort of butler's world. And so obviously I think we have to make a transition from the opulence of the upstairs, as it were. So we go to a little bit more of a darker world and a little bit of a world where we have the curtains pulled and it's very much a utilitarian sort of place.
Ladies and gentlemen, silence, please. You are charged with the following indictments. Thomas and Ethel Rogers, that you did murder Jennifer Brady.
Rogers is, he's the butler. He's slightly resentful for his position in life, and I think he finds it hard. I think he thinks he's better than the people he serves and deserves more in a way. And he's unhappy with his lot, and he's a bit of a brute to his wife.
I am a maid, as you can see, and she's a bit of a sad little creature. She's in a bit of a disastrous marriage with someone who's not very nice. He's a bit of a rock bag, and she's sort of quite a desperate little creature, which is probably why she's ended up in this terrible marriage and this terribly lonely situation. And when we meet her, she's been very traumatised by something that they did. They committed a crime, and she's very traumatised. And in fact, it's affected her sight, which is probably psychosomatic. But she feels now that the lights are too bright for her. I received a wonderful written sort of essay about who she was, and it went into her backstory and what had this sort of terrible childhood, and then as she'd gone from service from house to house and not achieved much. I mean, quite a quiet sort of character, and was really quite sad and put upon, and thought that Thomas Rogers would be her salvation. I'm not sure I'm drawn to it because of the darkness. I think there's many elements in why you say yes to a project, and Craig wrote me a very lovely letter as well, personal letter, and it was very kind, and I sort of got a good vibe from him, and as you can see, they've assembled a brilliant ensemble cast, and the writing was so good as well. Sarah had just written such a good script. Not that I say very much, I'm just pretty mute, to be honest. All I do is cooking. I just do lots of cooking. That's it.
It's fun playing a nasty character. I get to murder an old lady today, that'll be fun. And, not really, but... that sort of stuff, it's good, it's exciting.
They're all wonderful, they're doing an amazing job. It's such a joy to go home every night and look at the rushes. I sit there with a big grin on my face thinking, oh God, this is amazing.
William Henry Blore, that you did murder James Stephen Landor.
Detective Blore has been employed to come to the island, come to Soldier Island, and to be on the lookout for suspicious characters. He has a list of the names who's going to be there, and he has been asked to be prepared for any eventualities, and to make notes about the different people that are going to be coming here. He's making a bit of extra money on the side. He's an upstanding character in his own mind, but he has some deep, dark secrets which he is also carrying around with him. It's always fun when you not only have great source material, but you're also working with other actors who are bringing their A game to it, as it were. Me personally, with a face like this, I get to play lots of nefarious characters, which in my mind are always much more interesting to play. Yeah.
Man who could use a drink.
How very good people, perhaps.
Well, like all the characters in the adaptation, he meets a grisly end. It's slightly different to how it's portrayed in the books and in movies before. It's almost a very heightened death where Blore is actually, in his own mind, attacked by a bear. But in actual fact, it is he's knifed to death. But it's in a state of great sort of hysteria where he's imagining that this thing is happening to him. Honestly, challenges. The moustache. I'm afraid I can't grow my own, so it's always a bit funny having something glued onto your face in the morning. But apart from that, it's only good challenges, not bad. Yeah.
Edward George Armstrong, that you murdered Louisa Mary Cleese.
Dr. Armstrong is this, at first, a slightly preening doctor who is invited here spuriously to come and look after the lady of the house. And he specializes in sort of female psychological complaints, neuroses and things like that. And then during the plot of the piece, you discover that he had accidentally killed somebody while operating, and he was drunk during the operation. So not really accidentally. I mean, it's, you know, he was responsible. And then as the plot goes on, you then discover that the root of all of that was the fact that he had been in the First World War as a medic and had to endure the most appalling conditions, having to deal with people from the front line, and that there's been some sort of psychological breakdown in him, which made him a kind of heavy drinker and a kind of, you know. So I think what's interesting about all these characters, apart from maybe Wargrave, is that there are reasons for the way they are and what they did. And I quite like that, because it at least gives the characters some complexity. What I think is a challenge with this is to try and make the characters perhaps more believable than they could often be played. You know, I think sometimes they could be played as kind of cardboard cutout characters that are slightly one-dimensional, and you know what I think is quite good about this and the way that Christie wrote it is that actually they are quite complex characters, and that they have reasons for being the way they are. I think what is most challenging for me certainly is keeping my place in the plot, because it is quite a complex plot and it happens over 5 days. So it's like, where are we now? And we're filming it, as is often the case with anything. You're filming it out of sequence. So it's trying to remember exactly where you are. And especially with someone like Armstrong, who it sort of breaks down during the course of the 5 days. It's sort of charting where you are along that path, and he starts drinking. So how much is he drunk? Where is he in terms of that? So that's quite a challenge.
Give us some, darling. Come on, eat it.
I mean, these are great projects to work on because, you know, it's an ensemble cast. There's a lot of you. Nobody has real sort of burden of responsibility for the whole thing. So you can just kind of have fun with, you know, the material, with your character, and really enjoy working with all these different people.
Lawrence John Wargrave, that you did murder Edward Seaton.
I'm lucky enough to be working with a really good cast. 3 or 4 of whom I've worked with before. I mean, Sam Neill I've known for a long time. Aidan and I have done a bit. I can't remember what it was, but we have worked together. And Toby Stephens I've admired for a long time. I mean, he seems to have the best of both his mother and his father. And Miranda Richardson. A lot of the crew I haven't worked with, which is unusual because we're a kind of cottage industry in this country and everybody tends to know everybody else. But, you know, we're good at this job in this country. And it doesn't matter where I go, actually, and I've filmed all over the world, that if there's anything wrong with a production, it's either because the director, forgive me, doesn't know his arse from a hole in the ground, or the producer is a crook, or the actors are bad. Never because the crews are bad. I've never worked with a bad crew in my life. But, in this case, you know, we have a really good crew and a great cast and an extremely talented director that I've never worked with before. So, you know, touch wood, it continues that way because it's really good at the moment.
We're pulling out of here today and then we're heading off into central London to do lots of elements there until we go to the main interior house location where we'll be for 4 weeks.
We're just outside London, near Pinewood Studios. Harefield House used to be a conference centre. It's a big old mansion that's been expanded and added to. The great thing about this house is, unlike a stately home, it's been very messed about with over the years. So there's nothing precious here, because the problem you come across is when you go into places like Rootham, where we filmed the kitchens, there's a lot of rules and regulations. You can't fix into the walls, you can't change the colour, you can't move the furniture. Here, which is what's been fantastic for us, it's a blank palette, really, and a pretty hideous blank palette. All the doors were fire doors. The walls painted the most weird colours because there'd been pop promo shoots. One wall was bright orange, one wall was bright yellow, you know, so you had to have a sort of vision to see it. But what's been amazing for us is it does have the layout. We had several issues here. The house is supposed to be on an island, so if you shot straight out of the windows here, you'd see a garden with all the trees, which is not where we're at. So we were going to have to put green screen outside the windows anyway. But we had the additional problem that we had day and night. And when you're shooting on location, you don't want the whole crew to have to be standing around shooting all night. And you don't want to do flat blackouts on windows because it just looks hideous. So John's solution was, well, how would I handle this in the studio? Obviously, I would have the lights pre-rigged for day and night. So it's like a rock concert sort of stage. You know, you can switch on the lights for the day and the lights for the night.
At Harefield House, we're building this quite large tent, which enables us to make it into a studio effectively. So we can go from day from night very quickly, and we can shoot out the windows and use backdrops and not have to worry about the sun coming around. So it's a pragmatic thing as much as anything else, but it also allows us control of the light in a sense. So we can shoot at quite low light levels and use smaller lights because we've brought everything down light level wise.
I didn't even realise how much of a shell it was before we came. I think the production crew came in and completely started from scratch, and it's amazing if you actually carefully look at little details in the house, little bits of artwork. You sort of see some really sinister scenes. On the surface, it seems so inviting, but actually when you get into the depth of it and into the detail, it's pretty foreboding if you actually look a little closer.
Anthony James Marston, that you did murder John and Lucy Coombs.
Anthony Marston is a young, reckless, thoughtless young man who doesn't really think about much else other than what is immediately in front of him and his own desires and needs and wants. He's one of the only characters that is almost truly unaware of his secret, unaware of his darker side, because he's just so thoughtless and so uncaring and so self-centered that he's not even aware. So it's quite interesting in playing some of these scenes. You're there with the other actors and everyone has a kind of clear action in the sense of they've got something to hide, or they've got this, they've got that. You know, my character is just blissfully unaware for a lot of it. You know, he has no idea. I think what's really been amazing on this job is the cast. I mean, it's rare that you get to work with sort of a kind of group of 10 of you that are in a lot. You know, it's a true ensemble. So that was amazing, and I don't know, just hearing everyone. I mean, it's being there with Sam Neill and Charles Dance and Miranda Richardson and Toby Stephens and Gorman and Aidan, all of them, just especially hearing the generation above me telling their stories. I mean, they have you laughing for days. They're so funny. So it's just been a really lovely, great ensemble feeling. Everyone's sort of just really getting on and having a laugh and having a good time.
Philip Lombard, that you did murder 21 men, members of an East African tribe.
Lombard is he's a mercenary. He's like a gun for hire, basically. He's one of the only characters really that comes into the house that he knows he's on a mission. He knows that something's going to kick off, something's going to happen, and he wants to be the guy to solve it. The great thing about Lombard is he doesn't care. His moral conscience just doesn't bring him there. I mean, he knows he's done this horrible thing in Africa. He's killed 21 people, and he's probably done a lot worse. I mean, you get that sense from Lombard too that this isn't the first time, and it's not the only thing he's been called on. You know, you get the feeling he's done a lot more, but he just doesn't care. That there is something quite nice about just the recklessness of the character, and as he's completely ego-driven. He's, as Sarah Phelps said, the writer, you know, in 1939 you have an Irish man coming into a house full of British people with a pistol. You know, it's a dangerous kind of situation for anyone to be in, and I can see how other characters might be slightly intimidated by him, but he's a fun character to play. Playing with the big boys, I mean, the likes of Charles Dance and Sam Neill and Miranda and you know, Toby. I mean, there's so many amazing actors in the show, and we all get on, you know. It's a good bunch. It's a fun green room when we finish kind of shooting a scene. There's good crack.
Emily Caroline Brent, that you murdered Beatrice Taylor.
I'm somebody who's possibly guilty of always trying to see the good points in somebody, just saying, well, they are human and we're all, you know, there but for the grace of God go you or I, you know. But, I mean, she's not very likeable. She just isn't. Anyone who has no doubt and no humour with that lack of doubt isn't really going to win many favours, I don't think. I mean, part of the guilty pleasure about watching this for people will be wanting people to have their comeuppance, sort of, you know, this Schadenfreude about, it's happening to them, it's not happening to me, and I'm not like that, and I would never be like that, and they deserve to die. So I think there's certainly an element of that in this story. I find the darkest murder of all is not Emily's murder, but Vera's, because it implies a degree of psychoanalysis by the perpetrator so deep. He knows that if he just puts the suggestion in Vera's head, she will do something about it herself, and there seems to be a peculiarly nasty enjoyment in that.
Vera Elizabeth Claythorne, that you did murder Cyril Ogilvy Hamilton.
Vera is in her late 20s. She's a games mistress. She's probably, although it's not disclosed in the script, but from what we talked about and what's in the book, is that she's worked a lot of her adult life, but she's also learnt how to adapt to particular situations. I think she's very good. She's really clever. She doesn't miss a beat, and I think that's what helps her kind of continually adapt and sort of mould. I think she's a good actor. I think you always kind of look for the darker side in characters you play to make them whole people, always. And when it's written for you, it's a gift. And I mean, one of the striking things about Vera when I read the script is that she's kind of everything. She's sort of, throughout these 3 episodes, you see so many parts of her, and it's so unusual, you know, because of course everyone has this, but for it to be loaded into a script is massive. The horror aspect of this show as well is that it just sort of, as much as you hide, as much as you lie, as much as you try and get on with your life without dealing with this stuff, you can't really ever move on, and that's fascinating.
John Gordon MacArthur, that you did murder Henry Richmond.
There's been nothing particularly challenging for me. I mean, it's one of those parts that fits me like a glove, and I didn't have to do any particular research. My father was in the British Army for 20 years, and he had a moustache like this. He talked better than I did, but than I do. But there's no research required, or it's not much of a stretch. I grew up with a man just like General MacArthur. It is curious. There's such a long-standing fascination that the English have, and English writers, with mysteries and murder mysteries and so on. And by and large, they have a middle-class audience, and they are middle-class murders. They're not toffs murdering each other, and they're not, factory workers murdering each other. They're middle-class people doing middle-class things. And I've always found that slightly puzzling. It's a staple of the BBC and ITV here, these middle-class murders. And there's something about the English that finds that comforting. Murder is comfort to the English. It's like scones and cream, It's normally people disposed of with a cup of tea. Yeah.
I like 1930s fashion. I've always felt that that's my era. When people say, oh, I should have been born in the 18th century, or this, that and the other. And I mean, it's my job as an actor to be plausible in whatever period with a great deal of help from makeup and costume.
When I went for my costume fitting, very lovely Lindsay, who's designed the clothes, put me in this, and I said tentatively, could I maybe have something just a little bit more fitted, just a bit more flattering? And she looked at it and she said, no, that is absolutely shapeless. That's exactly what we want. So I'm in a completely shapeless garment, so I don't have much to say about my clothes.
The ladies' clothes, it was all about silk, it was all about satin, it was all about the drape and the body shape and all of that sort of thing. Thankfully I have Maeve, who's very beautiful, so that was good, and her body shape is great, so that worked on her. The stuff for the men, it's very difficult for them to understand, because the 30s fashion was absolutely high waist here in the trousers, which I love. I think it's very sexy. But men have no idea where their waists are nowadays, so they get very stressed about this.
To be honest, I think it's quite comfortable. I mean, the trousers are quite cinched in the waist, which is a little tight after lunch.
The pants are a little high for my liking, and they feel high, and I have all the costume people coming in and they're hoofing them up all the time and tying the belt a bit tighter, and they feel so high. I mean, everybody wears jeans these days, and it feels weird.
I can tell throughout these few weeks, I keep looking at this guy, looking at Aidan, because his first day it was like, I don't really know. But now it's like, yeah, is that all right? Is that high enough? Is that good? It's like, yep, that's it, you've got it.
It does give you a good line and a good shape, and you kind of think we have lost a lot in that. I mean, we don't dress anything like half as stylish as people used to dress. We have lost something in that.
Well, I always like dressing up, and it's not often you can say you come to work and, get to do the whole day in your pyjamas, so, but in terms of the constriction of the clothes of the 30s, I love clothes, and with the gentlemen's high waists and actually quite tight double-breasted suits, I find it kind of can actually help with your character.
It's a very macho, I think, a very macho look for everybody. It's all very trim, it's very neat waist, it's very strong shoulders, and very sort of loose, elegant hip. So I think that's great. It's impossible to find that stuff. You can find some that are real, which we've done on a few of the actors, but generally people's sizing is different now. So I've had a lot made in the style from patterns of the 30s, just to recreate that.
It's all been fun. The crew are great, we're efficient, like everything runs really well, and it looks incredible too. I mean, the team have done such a wonderful job with everything, so we feel like we're doing something special. So you just kind of hope it works now, you know, with such an important story like this. We need to get it right. So there's that tiny bit of pressure that we just want to nail it, you know, but it's feeling good right now. There's still a little bit to go, but no, it's been a really special job. I'm so happy to be a part of it.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful job. It's been so well supported. And yeah, Abby, the producer, and Craig, the director, and all the cast are just magnificent. I mean, obviously I knew the work of a lot of the cast, but they've been so, I don't know, so open and funny, and it's kind of heavy material, but it's been fun. It's been really, really fun.
A lot of hysteria. A lot of hysteria. A lot of very English humour, even though there's a few Aussies around. And, you know, they're token Brits anyway.
I always enjoy working in this country, and that's largely because I mean, I enjoy actors' company wherever I am, but there's something about English actors when you have a little repertory like we have here, and there's 10, 12, 14 of us at any one time, and people are full of amazingly funny stories, and everyone's got on very well. It's really fun to come to work. Craig's been doing a great job directing it. It looks very handsome, and I think it'll be just the sort of thing that'll be of great comfort and cheer in a snowy English Christmas.